Okay. All right. Greetings, good people, and welcome to another edition of Cat's Corner, the podcast. This is the one-on-one live series. We are back in the original studio because I am getting some work done downstairs, and it's kind of tricky. And I'm trying out something new with these little trying to live produce. So let me know what you think of this. I'm excited about what we about to do. Today, I'm super excited for my guest because we have this really interesting story about how we met and how we've been reconnected. Her name is Ananda. She has an amazing brand called SweetWyrdness. She's a writer, she's a visual artist, and we're going to talk about all of the things that she's doing, to manage this pandemic, and her new children's book, Yeye SweetWaters and the Mean Mermaids. She just read the story, and I'm super excited. So please, let's welcome Ananda. Welcome to the show. You see how I'm out here producing. I'm excited. It's the little things. I'm not gonna lie. It's the little things that make me happy.
Hey, that's all it takes.
First of all, happy birthday!
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Form of this is a form of rebellion that you were born on this day that is so-called independence.
That's right. Yes.
Shout out to you and your mama for coming through the way you did on the 4th of July.
Ashe, and you will. You know what? I've never thought of it how you said it, but yes, I was actually born 3 months early.
Oh wow! See,
yeah. You were
an act of rebellion, and I'm proud of you. Fantastic. I usually start off these sessions, might as well call them because they're so much fun. With a really loaded question. How are you today?
Oh wow, I'm grateful.
Okay.
So before I got in the shower, and I usually take long showers, but I couldn't today. You know the song "All This Love" by DeBarge?
Yes.
So that song was just like going through my consciousness as I was in the shower. And it was the first time I actually heard it the way that I heard it today.
Okay.
And it was like the universe reminding me that all this love is here for me.
I'm swaying on the inside. Like I can feel it. I love it. I love it. That's beautiful.
And that part where he says, after all that I put myself through, I found that all that I really needed was you. In the background, the background singers, all this love is coming down. And I was bawling in the shower because life is so good.
Right. It is. In the midst of all of this, it is. It really is. Because people are texting me and I'm trying to let them know the show has started. Sorry about that.
Okay.
It's like my family. I'm like, I got the show on Saturdays and Sundays. We need that. That was a beautiful message. We need that message. And we need to remember that because these times are hard. It's been very difficult. So I'm glad. I mean, we're just getting started, but you were able to bask in your short shower with that message.
I was snot crying.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
hands up in the air.
That's real.
Praise moment.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Do you have any plans today for the special day?
I'm making a trifle cake, like a strawberry cheesecake trifle cake with my children for my birthday.
Okay.
I'm going to be sitting with my egun and just saying prayers, lighting incense and dancing and just appreciating. My birthday's on the 4th, so most people are always busy, and I generally, like when we live back in the DMV, like people might come through and have crabs or some drinks, but I tend to be pretty low key. So
for people who aren't familiar with the term egun, let me not assume that all of us are together in this. Can you please explain to people so they understand?
So I'm a priest in West African and Sheshe, the West African Orisha tradition. And so my egun, or, everybody has egun. If you're living, you have egun. They're your ancestors. And they're amazing. I think that it's always important for people to really understand, especially in unprecedented times like this, when folks feel really alone, that they're not, and that they have a whole spiritual entourage, if you will, that is with them in the non-physical. And I think that's important to know that, you know, even though this physical body, we have these limitations and our own perceptions can be limited depending on what we've come here to do.
Right.
But even in the work that I've done, my perspective is limited. How can I know the eternities? I can't.
Right.
You know? So you're not alone. We're not alone. Yeah.
I just thought it was important for people to hear that. You know, you and I had an amazing conversation, which my sister is actually, she's a Yawo now. Congratulations, Toyin. So she's actually watching, and I just wonder, I'm like, hey, we need to get on right now because I know she's going to totally love this conversation. But Yawo Ayo. So I'm really proud of her and really
joy.
She is one. She is, and I'm super, super proud of her and just really excited for her journey. And when we talk about these unprecedented times, can you share a little bit about, you know, I described you as an artist and a writer. I was hanging out on your website, just like looking through all the things, having a good time. As Adama Grace would say, it was in your neighborhood hanging out. And I was wondering how would you describe your creative process before COVID, and how would you describe it now? Is there a difference?
It's a slight difference, and I would say the only difference is I can definitely tune in more because people are way more still. If that makes sense.
Yep.
But not too much has changed. You know, my process as an artist is it comes through in downloads. Like a lot of artists, they may not use that articulation,
right?
But it's downloads, and so I've been in prayer more. You know, and that's saying a lot because I already pray a lot. And so you can ask anybody who knows me, like I got a prayer for your ass. I mean, if you need one, I got it. You know, I love praying. And so I think this time and also I think the other thing that has changed my process is really understanding that a lot of people are not connected spiritually and holding space for them in that way. And whether they know me or not, whether they know, you understand what I'm saying? Whether they know me or not, whether we communicate or not, holding a space for folks to really tap in whatever system that calls them. It can they could be agnostic or atheist and just tune into love, period. You know what I'm saying? But knowing that they're being held. And that's hard for people to trust because most people don't trust. At all. They don't even trust themselves. They rather distrust than to trust. That feels more comfortable and comforting.
Yeah. And as a priest, are you finding that you're being called on in that particular position more now because of this pandemic? Or are people just like, it's the end of the world, I'm just gonna go hide under a rock?
Not from individuals per se, but from, I would say, from the collective consciousness, one, and two, from the shrines, from the spirits. You know, like really showing me what gets to be prayed for, right? So not just the workers, not just people going with families, but folks who are like amazingly marginalized. I found myself praying a lot for those imprisoned, for those for children especially. Yeah.
And when we think about, you know, so it's interesting. I describe myself as a cultural architect, and I spend a lot of time talking about Black people because I just love Black people and Black culture.
Yes.
It's my favorite thing to be. But when we talk about the spiritual space, race has no place. It doesn't. It's a concept that doesn't make sense. Like
it doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't exist there.
It doesn't exist. And I wonder how you are managing the practice of being in tuned and praying and being a priest with the fact that what is, in addition to the pandemic, on top of this massive uprising where Black and brown people are pushing back against systemic oppression across the board, and how you bring those two into alignment.
Ooh,
I know. It's not even, I'm sorry, but that's the question that they want me to ask. So I'm just asking.
No, it's no worries. And I appreciate it. And it's something that I actually talk about quite regularly. So what I would say is that, I'll say for me, because I was born in this body, I have a duty to my ancestors, to my people, my nation people, all over the world, all indigenous people. The disconnection is from the people who don't think that they're indigenous, who are our white brothers and sisters. And so that's where the fragmentedness comes from.
Right.
I think that just like Ogun goes to war to make peace. So sometimes you just gotta, after a while, you say, with love, I'm about to serve you your ass.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that can be done so many different ways. For me, I'm not someone who's out on the front lines.
Right.
I think our ancestors. Now, this is the part that's interesting. My ancestors are not about fighting in that way. Some people's ancestors are. Some people's ancestors have not been venerated, have not been taken care of, have not been elevated. But their sadness and sorrows don't belong to white people. They're ours to take care of. And as they're elevated, then we're able to approach it from different ways. Some people are out there, nuck if you bucking.
Right.
Some people are out there burning sage.
Right.
Some people are in the home cooking for their people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a very delicate space. And I think folks are doing what they're called to do at this time.
Right.
Sometimes my thing is, if you take care of yourself, if you take care of your people, if you take care of your community, everything else will calm down. When you have to fight, you have to be nourished, right? You have to have strength. Our people they're strong in a way. I'm not saying our people are not strong. Please, y'all, don't get mad at me. I'm telling you. But in order to really fight well, there has to be nourishment. There has to be strategy. There has to be order. Some people would disagree with me and be like, no, all this stuff gets to be burnt down. Like we can figure all that stuff out after all the embers settle. I don't. That's not how I see it. I think that we get to take care of ourselves, heal our ancestors, heal our family line, take care of our brothers, take care of our sisters, correct our brothers, correct our sisters, raise our children, raise them well, give them what they need. That whole system is going to dismantle itself. Hate is going to undo itself.
So what would you say to someone, because this is interesting. Of course, this is not what I plan to talk about today, but I'm loving it. Let's go.
Does that make sense though, what I said?
No, I hear you. I absolutely hear you. And so I'm going to challenge you on two fronts, because I think that I'm anticipating what the pushback might sound like. I think you are on the front lines. I think when you go to your shrines, when you pray, when you are praying for those that are imprisoned and those who, haven't felt it yet, I think you are on the front lines. I think we need to re-examine what we mean by the front line.
Right. That's that. So, okay, go ahead. I think you have two. Okay.
The other part is, I love what you said about we got to take care of ourselves. Because I agree, nourishment is important. You can't do battle if you're not nourished. But I wonder, when you say you know, this idea that if we do focus on that, every time Black people, at least in this country, have minded their business,
right,
has come to say, you know what, we don't like that you're minding your business. We don't like that. Because what you just described is what I imagine Tulsa was like before they massacred all those people. People
absolutely.
minding their business,
Right,
and doing their right work, taking care of their family, taking care of their people. And here come angry, jealous folk who are like, how dare you be Black and flourish? And we're going to wipe this out. So I just wonder, at what point, you spoke of Ogun and how Ogun fights, makes war to make peace. And so I feel like this is what I do. I feel very Ogun energy in terms of some of the ways that people are going about it, particularly the physical aspect. So I wonder, for you, with what you've seen, with the long vision that you have, do you think that this time around that there's going to be change? Does this time different for you?
Yes, I do. So thank you for saying that part about the front lines, and folks that are in communication with the spirit world are in the front lines, and everybody has their own. I mean, I have priests, brothers and sisters who listen, let's go. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? The way they approach their shrines and they practice is completely different from how I approach it. Based on their death. Thank you, Spirit. Based on their destiny. Right. It's not good or bad. It's just based on somebody's destiny. Right. Somebody be like, Ananda, you come with too much of that. You know, that sounds too close to love and light and stuff. No, I think that coming from, to me, love is all that. Right. Matters. Love is expansive. Right. It's too much energy to hate. That's one. Okay. So saying that these folks are, yes, I appreciate you saying that. Two, if you don't feel welcome someplace, if you keep trying to do something different in some place, and every time you try, and this is a good lesson for anybody, relationships, wherever, and every time you go, you do your hair different, not gonna work. You change your clothes, oh, this is not gonna work. I lost weight. I gave money. Y'all still don't F with me. What do you do? What do you do when you're not appreciated somewhere, Kat? Oh, I just don't go anymore. I leave it be. And you go where? I go home. I mind my business. People need to go home. And when I say home, understand that the world is their home. Understand that I don't think there's any place that we can go. There are some places that we're not welcome. But their folks are like, well, my ancestors built this land. Yeah, that's real. And they didn't come across the great seas on a yacht saying, we're going to go to this new world and get our asses whooped and be raped and treated worse than animals. It wasn't by their choice. So when I don't like a thing, when I have tried, I've attempted to bring my whole self to a place. And every time there's sabotage, there's deceit, there's destruction, there's ridicule, there's oppression. Every time. You met people like this. You've met people. It does not matter what you do, how you rearrange yourself. They will never be happy with what you do because they have their own issues. So after a while, you're like, I'm going to remove myself from this conversation. And our dollar is universal. And so are our passports. And so are our interests. And I think people get to have a more expanded view of what their home is. So in addition to reframing what the front line is, you're saying we need to reframe what home is. Yeah. What is home? And also in reframing that, having a real conversation about how we relate to one another.
The door is open. Let's walk through. What you talking about, Mama?
So I think it's beautiful that here in the diaspora, that people are celebrating Ghana, that they're celebrating Nigeria, that they're celebrating Senegal. Everybody's doing the dances and all of this and eating fufu and gari, and you know what I'm saying? And our men are being like, yes, and our sisters are being like, yes, right? Like people are like, yes.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh.
But they not having no real conversation with no real Africans. Not everybody are.
Okay.
And a lot of Africans aren't having no real conversations with the folks here.
Mm-hmm.
There really gets to be healing.
Right.
There really gets to be healing done individually. Again, a lot of this stuff is, some of it is surface. People are going to be real mad at me. Some of it is really surface. Some of it gets to be confronted, but not head on with other people, but with ourselves.
Right.
Because we have our own conversations around race, around colorism, around, you know what I'm saying? And some folks would say, oh, well, that's because of white racism supremacy. Not all of it. Some of it is just tribalism.
Right.
Some of it is nationalism.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even when you have Yoruba people, you have Hausa, you have, you know, Igbo, even in that, people are what? They're like, well, we do it this way.
Right.
Well, we do it this way.
Right.
So how do we get to, like, get rid of that and say, but we all belong to each other?
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. And I think that, so tomorrow, Tastemakers Africa is hosting a whole thing called The Thread. It's a volume 5. So it's a whole virtual conversation. And repatriation is one of the topics that's being discussed. And one of the things that I've always said is I'm all for Black people finding a home outside of the U.S. I'm all for multiple homes and multiple places to land. I don't think that I need. I don't think I should just give up everything. I can come here and spend some time, and I can be in other places. So I'm all for multiple homes and multiple places to land. But in this conversation on repatriation, I am always concerned about. And I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying this until it's not true. You can't grow up in this system of anti-Blackness and so-called white supremacy and not be affected as a Black person.
Absolutely.
Not completely aware of that. You take that shit with you wherever you go. And I've seen things in my travels. Some of us don't travel well when we get outside the U.S., you know? And so
we have a whole different thing.
Right. So, you know, my concern about repatriation is how do we do it in a way where we don't exact our privilege, our blue passport privilege, onto the communities that are already there. So I agree. There have to be conversations.
I think people get to define their conversation around what wealth is for them. They get to redefine what life is for them.
Right.
And so if you come from a space that, because you're here, you're already wealthy, and with that energy of wealth that you have, right? So that means dismantling a whole poverty conversation, consciously,
right,
and stepping into whatever your power is and the wealth of that, right? So when you go home and you see mamas and babas in homes maybe the size of this room, maybe a little bit bigger, and they don't have the big Sealy Posturepedic bed, but they have straw mats or a little mat. But they have food, they have community, they have water, they have good health, they have long life, and they have whatever their connection is. And yes, some people go to the city and go to the marketplace and make their money, right? And you see that, and you see the abundance of that. Then it's like, well, I know for me, when I went home, I was like, I need to reconfigure some things. Yeah. Like my life gets to be simple and full. But that means people redefining what good is, what peace is, what a peace of mind is for them, what wealth is.
Right.
See, we over here, we think wealth is having all of this money, all these commas.
Right.
Wealth to me is when all those commas they fail to exist, what is my name?
Right.
Because if I know you and you have a good name, and I know your sister and your family and y'all are good people, and you know us and we're good people, and we have people who know how to build houses, bake, sew, make fabric, and you understand what I'm saying? Going back to a way of life where things are done, maybe bartering, but your name is what gets you that. If your name is not good, it's not going to get you that. Does that make sense?
It makes
what
sense.
I'm saying?
Yes.
You know,
it does.
So when you have those things, you want your name, to me, I want my name to be a blank check.
I like that.
So when I need something, it's really about relationships.
Right.
Or if you need something and I say, well, you go to this person, they can get this for you.
Right.
Just tell them you know me. Tell them you're my sister.
Right.
And you call them and you say, well, I was calling, I'm coming about this. And they say, okay. Well, my sister's Ananda Fatima. That's your sister.
Right.
Oh, you're welcome. What do you need?
Right.
That's a whole different conversation.
And
the thing that white
Go ahead.
The thing that white racism supremacy has done in capitalism, how it is now, what it has done is it's gone all over the world. And so people, how they relate to one another and how they relate to money and resources, to me, is fragmented. Because if I'm a billionaire, I'm going to be a billionaire and it's for my people.
Right.
It's not just for me to be, oh, y'all are over here, like down there, and I have all these things, and it's not going towards something.
Right.
It's not going towards building out our communities.
Right. I think that's the relationship, the way capitalism has sullied that barter relationship is something worth mentioning. I think that I most of the people that I know operate from that place of, how good is your name? Your credit score is your name.
Right.
Now, I know people off the strength of, if they say Miriam Ford calls me and says, hey, I need you, I need you to put this person on. I don't question it. I'm like, all right, let's set a date.
Yeah.
Evelyn Bando, one of my besties, she was like, hey, you need to do this? Yes, ma'am. I go do what she tells me to do. I don't question it. I'm like, okay. And so I do think that already happens, but I think that we don't value it in the way that we should.
Exactly.
I think that there is one of the things that the pandemic has shined a really bright light on is how much we have allowed other things and other people to talk us out of our magic. And I say this often, like our ability to create and to sustain, like Black people have been making something out of nothing since before time.
Right.
So alchemy, right. So the fact that we've allowed capitalism to come in and talk us out of that skill set is the way that I think we suffer the most. And I see it all the time in the way that I, when talking to my students or trying to convince somebody, like, let's just try this. Like, let's just see what happens. There's nothing wrong with failing. When you look out now and you see how things are operating, you moved to New Orleans, 6 weeks ago? What 3 months ago?
8 months.
8 months. Okay. And so your experience with pandemic has solely been based in New Orleans. What has that been like?
Oh, it's been very different. It's been more isolating in a way that I can, and I'm a hermit.
Yeah.
So just being very, honestly, if I didn't have a spiritual practice, I probably would have lost my stuff. Like it probably would have been because of the anxiety, not just so much here, but in the world. I could feel that when I woke up in the morning. Like I would wake up some days like, what is this? Like, is this all this feeling like this?
Right.
And so it's been very different. I mean, to go down to like the French Quarter and there's nothing. No one, no bars open, no nothing. It looks like
it goes
something that hasn't been seen like in a long time.
Right.
It's been very different. I tend to just be home with our children and stuff, but it has been isolating. I will say that.
Okay.
You know,
You more isolating than you think it would have been if you were back here?
if we had been in a DMV, I think so. And first of all, so there wasn't the, what is that thing called? The the desire to really, the enticement of having people by the house or going to people's houses, because I don't know a lot of people here.
Right.
So that was, it went without that, you know? So people like I saw online, like people would have people come by their houses wearing masks and stuff like this. Like I know Miriam.
Right.
I ain't seen her.
Right.
You know, she's reached out to me like, hey sis, can I do a drive by your house? And I might get the text late or be, you know, butt naked running around the house after kids. I'm like, it's not gonna work.
Right. Right.
But I would say that it's just been different. It's been different having conversations via Zoom. You know, doing rituals via Zoom with the community that I belong to, or being on the phone sometimes way more than I normally am.
Right.
It's been different. It's been real, it's been quiet. It's been real slow. Things have really slowed down.
Right.
The energy of New Orleans, which is not, it's slow, but it's like bubbling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like flat.
Right.
So that's been very, and it happened like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think the city has handled, you know, the quarantine aspect of things well? Like, do you feel like safe?
I think the city is doing the best that they can.
Okay.
I think ultimately it's been up to individuals.
Right.
So I can say like maybe before the like stay-at-home orders, I mean after the stay-at-home and they started like doing gradual lifts, you know, phasings. Before they even did phase one, there was one day the Kase said it felt like the whole world was out at the stores and everything. Like people were just out because some people was like, so I think some people was like, yo, if I die, just die. You know, like they just, they couldn't take it.
Right.
You know, I think ultimately it's just been about folks ain't used to being still like this. Folks ain't used to having this kind of stillness, this kind of time to reflect. When would you have time to reflect?
Right.
When we live in a 7-day, 24-hour type of society.
Right.
And people not used to that. They're not really liking that too much.
And I mean, so the beauty of it is that once you get past, and I think for a lot of us, it took maybe a month and a half of this to be like, oh, this is really happening. I need to figure out how I'm going to manage, like what my life is going to look like now. You know, I can't continue to have to shower and just wear sweatpants all the time. You know, I have to.
Right.
Yesterday I was like, I'm just going to put something cute on. It was 90 degrees outside. And I'm, like I said, I'm having work done. And the friend that's helping me with the garage, he's like, you going somewhere? I was like, nope. I just decided.
I know that's right.
And be cute and sit on my porch.
I know that's right.
Because, you know, at this point, what are we doing? You have a beautiful children's book that you have written. Yeye SweetWaters and the Mean Mermaids. I like saying the title. Yeah, there you go. There's the book. Let me see if I can get that single shot. There you go. So that's the book. And because the mail is so whack, Ananda was kind enough to read me the story earlier today. And I absolutely love it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Part of what is happening now is in this push, this uprising, and this pushback of all things oppressive and white supremacist, and adjacent. We are seeing a call for a dismantling of white supremacy, and what that means we we'll be here all day for that. So I'm not going to necessarily jump into that like unpack all the language. But when I see what you're doing with Yeye Sweetwater, I feel like that's a great example. Sometimes people think dismantling is going in and just like breaking down the system itself. So hire more Black people, get equity when it comes to pay and all these things. But I think simply being able to tell a story and give children stories that look like them, that force them to ask, where do I come from, are another way of dismantling. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about the concept of Yeye and the fact that you have, Black mermaids, because I think that is also something that is very dismantling to the system, particularly in children's literature. When we think about, Atlantis and Little Mermaid and these things, the uproar when, they announced that Ariel was going to be played by, I can't remember if it was Chloe or Haley, the young sisters, the duo, the singing group. And people were like, Ariel's supposed to be white. People were upset. Like, people were legitimately in their feelings that a Black child or a Black woman was going to play a mermaid. So the fact that you've chosen to use that iconography, when we know that whole idea of mermaid goes so far back and has such a rich history on the continent, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your process, why you chose that that imagery, and what you hope people will get from it.
So Yeye SweetWaters came to me one day when I was washing dishes in late August of last year.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just heard Yeye SweetWaters. Now I will say that my younger brother, Kasim, he calls me Sweet. He says SweetWaters. That's what he calls me when he sees me. And I just heard Yeye SweetWaters, and I was like, okay. And then the book was downloaded like a week later.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I wrote it in like a week. It came to me, the story, everything came to me. And when I told my husband about it, he was like, there's a whole thing online about the Black Mermaid and Ariel being played by, this young sister in the reboot of The Little Mermaid. And I really didn't know about that like that. I, seen some things, but I wasn't paying attention to that. And honestly, being initiated to Yeye Oshun in some lineages, she's a mermaid. And being initiated to Mami Wata, she's a mermaid. My husband being a priest of Imoja, she's a mermaid. And so I have all of this water. One of my children belonged to Olokun. That's a mermaid. Having all of this abundance of water in my life, I felt like water got to be represented. And I feel like ultimately water is it's the oldest source. And it is our story. And our story is ancient. And it's not whitewashed. And we have thousands of stories. And even in practicing African traditional religion, there are sacred stories that have to do with these deities. They are actually deities. Somebody might say demigods or whatever. They are gods and goddesses. And they get to be approached as such. They don't get to be made into like children because they're not. And they're powerful. They're not more powerful than God, but some people and how they practice, they are God. That is their God. And they bless them. Or they might have challenges with them, depending on how they move in the world, right? And so when the book came to me, I was like, this is dope. And I was so grateful to be able to write it. Really coming from a space of recollecting myself. It was really healing because I've been, Omitola in my life. I've been mistreated by sisters, and have had to forgive and have had to move on and have had to heal, and really showing our children that they get to be their fullest selves, never making themselves small because somebody is working something out.
Right.
And whatever somebody is working out has nothing to do with them. Ultimately, Omitayo, that was her inadequacies, right? And so having these conversations in our community, again, like everybody has their own secret sauce. They got their own sauce. Enjoy your sauce.
Right.
You know, enjoy your sauce. Share your sauce.
Right.
Other people, mix your sauces together. You know, whatever. But enjoy it. And I think that really it's also it wasn't given to me to take place here.
Right.
Because the stories don't, I'm not going to say mermaids aren't off the shores of the coast here. But in terms of our stories, it's so important for our children to know not only that they were kings, queens, and scientists before the great Ma'afa, that Christians and Muslims and Buddhists, if you're Black or African, that we have culture. And it's not just wearing these colors and it's or these patterns, but it's so many other things. And it is our story. That's part of our story. And we get to own them.
Right.
All of it.
Right.
And I was nervous actually about bringing the book out because I want children to have the book. I don't care what their parents practice. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. The way our calendar is made up is Greco-Roman. The way that the days of the week here are made up are Greco-Roman. Everything about how we live is indoctrinated with Eurocentrism. Mm-hmm. We have our own days of the week, our own. In Yoruba land or people who practice Ifa, they just had their new year. Right. Their Ifa year. That it's not the Gregorian New Year. Right. You understand what I'm saying? That we have our own ways of being and our own ways of life. And I pray that as our brothers and sisters go home, when they say they want to go home for real. Don't go home and eat McDonald's. Don't go, eat fried chicken. They have it there for you because they want you to be comfortable. But go home and eat your native food. Right. Go home and find out about the richness that you come from. Right. You can be Christian and find out about the traditions. We have deep and rich history. Right. And so that's part of the dismantling is going and looking back and being curious and taking stock and inventory of how much of this really is mine. And the thing is that people will find out and they'll be absolutely, people don't really want to do that because then they'll realize that. Right. Real talk. Because this is not theirs, that they're taking on other people's framework, But that's where spirituality is to catch them so they don't completely have a meltdown. Right. Because when you realize that this is a play of consciousness and that this is just a role that I came here to play. Right. And that I can lean back into the universe, into love, into my ancestors and be carried. And this conversation about race, which you spoke about earlier, in the spiritual world, nobody's fighting about race. It's not even, it's a non-conversation. Mm-hmm. Everybody has things that they're playing out here. And so Yeye SweetWaters is a way I feel like youth can play that out. The adults can, because adults, we are just big kids with our game faces on. Most of us are still the same person that we were when we were littles. Interesting. Okay. I have to think about that. There are definitely aspects of me that is still the smart ass little girl that I've always been. Yeah. You've always been a leader. You've always been a warrior. You've always been rooting for the underdog. That's true. You always wanted to do what you wanted to do. That's true. You right. Ain't too much you change. Except now I can buy my own groceries, which was what I wanted to do. Go to bed when you want. I can go where I want. Go to bed when I want. The other aspect is people really healing the parts that don't belong to them and letting them go. Mm-hmm. So they can stand or sit in their throne of their most authentic and radiant self. Mm-hmm. In the story, Yeye SweetWater,
acts as an ambassador almost. She's a negotiator.
Yeah.
Something is wrong. She's like, we need to fix this. Goes and finds the responsible party, and she's like, we need to come together and we need to figure out how to get some resolution. And I love that because I think that it's, you know, to show a young girl character take a leadership role the way she did, and to be able to go and then get the help of others to come to some sort of solution, I think is really important for people to see. But there's this element where the Mean Mermaids, I love this, under the leadership of one Mean Mermaid who's just insecure, you know, that, you know, these things happen. And so I wonder about this idea of groupthink and this idea of hive mind.
Oh God.
And yeah, I mean, this, right. You read me this children's story and I'm thinking hive mind, groupthink, because this is the way my brain works. But it made me think about the ways in which we learn to say no, and also to object when we see something wrong is happening. Because oftentimes we are in communal situations where we see that are wrong, that are happening, and we don't feel empowered to say something because of hierarchy or culture or gender or age or whatever. We don't feel comfortable enough to say, you know, this doesn't look right. And I wonder, as you have as your path has unfolded the way it has, how you have learned, particularly in group settings, how you've empowered people to step up and say when something's just not right.
I usually don't. So my stuff is kind of behind the scenes. I'm usually talking to individuals behind the scenes.
Right.
Group is a vicious place to be. It's a very, you know, as a survivor of being bullied for various things,
right?
I think that it takes a lot to stand up and say, you know, this isn't right, and to go against the grain.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, it just really goes back to how we...
Okay, so I feel like I touched a nerve. I'm sorry. Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think about how we get to raise our children.
Yeah.
You know what? I have 3 kids. An 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and almost 3-year-old. With those 3 little blessed creatures, I see hive mind. I see how the 2 oldest, because the youngest get on their nerves,
right?
They'll completely abandon her, go do something else. And almost every other day I have to call them in and say, you don't leave your sister out. You don't single her out. You be kind to her. Would you want somebody to treat you like this? Right? Because I homeschool.
Right.
And so when people have their kids in school, and when the teacher says, and a lot of parents have found out that little Johnny is indeed a butthole. They have found that out during COVID.
Right. We need to do something. Right.
And that when put into a group, all of those little aspects of our shadow self show up. Or all those kind of off parts about being a leader or being maybe a servant leader. All those things come into play. And I see it with my kids. And I'm sharing this because that's part of it. It's not just about, when we bring them out into the world. It's like, what are we doing in the home? How are we raising them in the home? How are we reinforcing or being strategic and taking away these attributes that they come here with? They came here with that. And the way they treat each other, they came here with that. I didn't have nothing to do with that. All I did was
bring them out.
Bring them out. I ain't say I ain't had nothing to do with it. But they have their own personalities.
Right.
And so as parents and as custodians and as aunties and uncles and community people, when we see our children have qualities, again, going back to us being big kids with adults we're big kids with our game faces on. Even us as adults have qualities that we done brought up from being snot-nosed kids.
Right.
That are still rearing its ugly head in the boardroom at the Bimbe, at whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was up to our parents to get that thing and say, this is the part of this that works.
Right.
This part right here is raggedy.
Right.
And either you want to be a person in the world that is moving with these raggedy parts.
Right.
Or you want to be a person in the world that is clean and noble.
Right.
I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I got some petty stuff.
Right.
I can be petty.
Right.
I don't relish in it. It's not my most redeeming thing. And
right.
some of my good friends, I say, girl, you get on the phone with your friends.
Right.
And you rehashing some stuff.
Right.
I got this judge. You want to hear about my judge? My judge has a parliamentary powdered wig, rolling gavel. And she will slide on in and I'll be like, yo, I'm not trying to put this thing on right now. You know what I'm saying? Those aspects of myself that are not the best. And I have to, especially in group settings, especially when somebody says something that grates on my nerves, because I have a part that's really compassionate, loving, altruistic, and then I have duality. Got this part over here that can be petty, that can be judgmental, that can be on a soapbox. Right. And those parts usually come out when I'm feeling sometimes insecure, when I'm not standing in my power. You understand what I'm saying? So people have to really know, and I think this book goes back to people knowing how to do inventory and inquiry within themselves.
You know, the thing about the book is that, and why I like it so much, and why I asked that question, is because we tend to be very hands-on in terms of holding children accountable in a way that we don't with adults. And so the parts of the book where there's a reckoning and, you know, the Mean Mermaid has to take responsibility for what she's done, and it's a public forum.
Right.
The part that I really like best, because what I think about is how often community fails all of us, because we will do things behind closed doors. We'll have these conversations one-on-one, but we won't say, you know what, let's talk about what we talked about in front of everybody. So everybody knows what was said. And so I feel like this time, this reckoning that is the pandemic and the uprising is affording us an opportunity to also recalibrate how we deal with each other. And I feel like your book is just a tool that can be used to make that happen.
Shay, thank you. One thing real quick I was going to say about community is some people don't want to be a part of community. They want to be in a club.
Okay. Speak on that, sister.
So they want to have the socialization without the responsibility.
Right.
Community. And so what this book is speaking of is the responsibility of community. Right. What you're speaking of is the responsibility of community, not ostracizing a person, but how do we get to bring this person back in, reel them in? How do we get to hold them accountable, hold ourselves accountable? And most people don't want that.
Right.
I actually want that, and I ask for that in the community that I move in.
So you can have people, right?
And I have people that do that. I don't want a bunch of yes people around me. I don't want people that are going to be like, "Oh, girl, you so great." I don't want to be abused,
right?
But if I'm showing up and I'm not showing up in my most authentic way, because we all have a personality, we're not always going to see eye to eye, but that's different,
right?
And so what we're talking about in this book is character. Omi Tayo was out of character.
Right.
You do not pit people against each other.
Right.
You do not puppeteer people. You do not, and what Yeye SweetWaters, she could have shamed her.
Right.
But she saw she was already struggling. So you don't shame people. There's different ways of correction.
Right.
And so I think that's part of it. Like, we have to learn how to be in community with each other, but that comes from being in community with ourselves. We are our first community. Our family is our first community. Your siblings, that's your first community. Before my family, that's my first community.
Right.
And so I know families where everybody fake like everything's okay, but they talk behind each other's back. And families talk behind each other's back. They not really open about what's going on. That's BS. That's BS. And that's why I tell people, Don't tell me you love me if you're not willing to be honest with me.
Right.
If you're not willing to be honest with yourself, then you can't be honest with me.
Well, I think that you are on this book I know there's more. I know Yeye's got more adventures, so I'm excited about what's to come. But before I guess, because I'm running out of time here as usual, it's like it's moving fast. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the illustration because I absolutely love the illustration and the way that the mermaids are drawn and the decision on skin tone and the colors that are chosen. So if you could share a little bit about that process, I think it would be really powerful to understand how you and the illustrator work together to get what you wanted.
So I've been working with Roz for over 10 years. Mm-hmm. She's an amazing artist. And when I went to her with the book, I was like, come on, let's go. And she was like, well, what do you want? I said, I want the mermaids to represent, I don't want the long flowing hair and the skinny.
Right.
I want the pot belly. I want the crooked fin. Mm-hmm. I want the freckles. I want the locks. I want the glasses. I want it to be diverse because we're diverse.
Right.
And I wanted my daughters to see themselves. And in fact, Yeye SweetWaters is one of my daughter's faces, caricature. Mm-hmm. And Puff Puff is my other one.
Okay.
And I thought it was important that our children see themselves. Mm-hmm. Kinky hair, everything. Mm-hmm. Brown, dark skin, all of that.
Right.
It was important. And Roz took my vision and went with it. Mm-hmm. And it was important to me to work with someone and continue to work with other people and her that can see a vision. And when I told her, she was like, you want her to have a what? I said, she want to have a pop belly. I want her to have a big belly. I want her to be one of the Omi Shewa. I wanted her to be dark skinned. She's chocolate. She's one of my favorite ones. Right. She's good complexion. She has this brown, beautiful belly because there are a lot of little girls who have brown, beautiful bellies.
Yes.
Little arms, little legs.
Yes.
And a big belly.
Yes.
And they're beautiful.
They're my favorite. They're wonderful. I love it. Is there the process of putting a children's book together, I imagine is a complex one because you are trying to create the right words and visuals because, children are your audience. And I wonder, because you're using Yoruba words, you are, you're playing around with language. You are putting, you're putting together these very complex ideas around shame and responsibility together. And I wonder, one, what did your kids think of the book when they finally got a chance to look at it? And two, what has been the response so far?
So my kids, I've read half of the book to them because the little one won't be still long enough.
Right.
But the 5-year-old, she loves the book. Mm-hmm. My son, he loves the book. He loves the part about accountability. Mm-hmm. He loves that. And the response has been incredible. Mm-hmm. It's been really at times overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And adults are like, man, this is a book for me. There are adults that are like,
yeah,
like you just made a book for adults, not just kids. And it's been amazing. I'm incredibly grateful.
Okay. And so the book is available. I shouldn't have done that. All right, let me go back. So the book is available here at SweetWyrdness.com.
Yes.
Please go and buy this book now. Buy multiple copies. Buy multiple copies. Make sure that, we out here, taking advantage of this white guilt economy. We need to make sure that's what I call it. That's what I call it.
Yeah, it's real.
So Black folks, looking for really great imagery, people who have Black children in their lives, everyone should get a copy of this book. It's beautifully done. I can't wait for the animated piece because I know it's coming. So I'm excited about that. I can't wait to see what that looks like. And I can't wait to see, what adventures Yeye SweetWater gets into because I know she's going to have a lot more.
Yes, she is. And we also have some amazing things coming for the littles and the littles at heart before the summer is out. Some product. So we're really excited about that.
I love it. So final question before I let you go and enjoy your birthday, because I've been eating up all your time today. What is the first thing you're going to do once we are sort of at a place where we can actually roam freely?
Oh man, go to a bakery.
You haven't been to a bakery this whole time? Really?
No,
wow.
My husband, he goes out. He does all of those things. We might go out every once in a while, but
you're like,
he's
no.
The one that's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I want to go see, I want my friends to come visit me, you know. So you're going to come down?
Oh, you already know. I already told Miriam get my room ready. It's a wrap. Like, low key, the way my stress levels are, I might show up on your damn doorstep next week.
Yeah. Well, you're most welcome.
Because it's a 20-hour drive. I ain't got nothing else to do but teach and, yell on Twitter. So, yeah, I can probably figure it out.
Yeah, I'm excited about what's happening in the world. I'm excited about our people at least starting to look at this, look at everything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that we're burgeoning on, we've already shifted into a whole new world, a whole new paradigm. Yeah, so I'm really excited for that. And it's going to look a little messy for a while, but everything will come into place.
This is good. It feels good. I think that we're gonna see if you want it. Like Lola Adeleo show was on the show last week, and she was like, if after all this you still come out an asshole, then you weren't trying. You missed
the point.
You missed the whole point of it. So I do think that we're gonna be better for it when it's all said and done. And
this was something real quick, when you earlier you had asked, one of the questions you asked me about like moving forward and our people moving forward, and I had given the answer about going home if you're not welcome someplace. Everybody's not going to want to go home. Right. And everybody doesn't want to shift into a new way of life. Right. Black, white, yellow, red. Everybody doesn't want that.
Right.
And that's okay too. And they'll be where they're at. And we just get to focus on ourselves. And the more we focus on ourselves in a very self-love, not selfish, that too at times, that way we will attract our tribe. We'll attract those people who are going in that same direction. And it's really about being propelled into the next space.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's going to look different for so many people. It does already.
And on that note, we are going to bring this beautiful session to a close. Thank you so much, Ananda, for
Thank you so much.
Everything. So not even just this. So you know what I'm thanking you for. I'm thanking you for everything. I appreciate you so much. This has been an amazing time. I'm excited that you are on this journey, and whatever we can do over here to support, we will be blasting everybody with Yeye SweetWaters. So everybody get ready. I'm about to be posting the hell out of this little baby mermaid. And
please, I have 800 books in my house that need to be out.
We got to get these books. There's nothing worse than stock that won't move. Go ahead and get these books. Yes. So I'm challenging everyone to buy a copy and to share, because I think that gift. I'm actually I have some nieces, and I'm now a grand aunt, so I got a couple books I need to buy as well. Like let's support this sister. Let's make sure that she gets these 800 copies gone, so she can
order more.
So she can order more, and she can write more stories. Yes. Thanks again. Have a wonderful birthday. I love to you and the family, and I'm sure we'll be catching up on other things very soon. And with that concludes.
May life be good for you. May you live long. May you live well. May you prosper. May every place that your feet carry you, may your blessings meet you there. May your blessings travel with you wherever you go. May people always speak well of you. May goodness come to your family, all of your family. May your ancestors carry you and hold you like the treasure. Continue to carry you and hold you like the treasure and the gift and the wealth that you are. I thank you. Thank you so much.
Woo! Now, you know what? You need to put an app together, because that was a prayer.
I didn't even get started. I thought
it was a little bit. I was like, it was amazing. Thank you so much for that. I mean, every time I think that, the last conversation was just amazing. I do this conversation and it's amazing. Like these have been such I'm thoroughly enjoying all of the things that I get to talk about with you all, and that you all end these shows so beautifully. It's always this amazing amount of love. So thank you for that. It means a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Now we really leaving. You know how it's just, so we're going to go and then I walk you out and then I stand and we talk. And then 30 minutes later, you got your foot on the inside of the car, but the car's not started yet. This is where we are. So now getting in the car.
Yes.
And we're about to like really, really go. So Ananda, thank you. We'll definitely be in touch. To everyone that watched and tuned in, thank you very much. If you are just catching this, there are plenty more. We're trying to get them all up on YouTube, but if you subscribe to my YouTube page for Kat's Korner, the Culture Architect, every time we upload stuff, you'll get access to it. I'm trying to build this. Apparently, I need 30 of you to subscribe so that I can actually change the URL so that it makes sense. So please help me out so I can change the URL at the very least. And we'll be back next week with some more great content. But for now, we are out because this culture ain't gonna make itself. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. And